Hi, I'm Lisa Louise Cook from the Genealogy Gems podcast, but I'm here today for Family History Expos TV. And I am so pleased to welcome to the show Bernie and Gracy. Welcome, Bernie.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
You are definitely an expert, a blogger on a topic of real interest to me. It's one that I don't think every family historian has really tapped into or maybe even fully appreciates the power behind it. And that's the idea of that location researching. Pinpointing where people are, seeing where activities are, and I would love to talk with you about that because I think that gives you a picture you really can't get any other way, can you?
That's right. It's I've been doing genealogy research for myself for the past 10 years. I had a lot of unanswered questions, and I started doing research like everyone else does. I went and got my Family Tree Maker software, and I got my subscriptions to genealogy.com and then to ancestry.com. But then I began to hit brick walls. And then there was only one way that I was going to bust them through. It wasn't going to be behind my desk. It was to hit the road.
Yeah.
Right? So I knew that the truth was out there, just like they say in the X-Files.
Yeah.
The truth is out there, so I hit the road. And what I began to understand by doing field research, and that's where I specialize in field research, I began to see patterns. Patterns that were of a geospatial nature, that especially as I went back into time, the mid-1800s, that you'd be able to predict where not only your ancestors were, but also where the pool of potential mates were, what their occupations were, what their risk of disaster from war or natural disaster, all based on location.
Yeah.
And so I all of a sudden began to develop a methodology around location first before I started doing pedigree research. And it's helped me on this side of the Atlantic and just helped me in southern Italy 2 summers ago. And I was able to break down brick walls. Location-based genealogy, if you understand the patterns, you can immediately break down brick walls and find your ancestors.
And I think it hits one important thing, which is that our ancestors didn't make decisions based on the lines on a map.
That's right.
And two, I was just researching somebody who's an Italian researcher, specialist, and she said, you know, people just didn't move around a whole lot.
That's right.
And so there again, understanding geographically where they were, but not just where they were, right? Where maybe their parish was located or where the...
It's even more deeper than that.
Okay.
I went and lectured today. I talked about the sound of the village bell. I went and showed in Manhattan that on particular streets, like Elizabeth Street in Manhattan, based on where you were, you can tell what town they were from. Because whatever the sound was of the village bell that held them in Italy, they retain that in the New World. So a great place in location genealogy is something called geodemographics. Birds of a feather stick together.
Right.
So if you can find some of the feather, right, and know where they're from, and then the person you're researching is in that same zone, you can predict the town or the village that they came from. So Southern Italian research is fantastic because Italians didn't look at themselves as Italians. They looked at themselves as members of their own village. And those same things carried over into the New World.
That same mindset.
Exactly. The sound of the village bell. That's what anyone who's within the sound of the village bell, that's what defined family. And it's a great strategy. So that radius may duplicate itself in the New World, that you could say it's pretty logical that they're not going to venture a whole lot further beyond that. That's correct. And in those same areas, they maintain the same religious festivals, same religious traditions, and they could be literally blocks apart, completely different.
Wow.
So that's why, again, a location-based strategy, geodemographics, understanding the patterns of human interaction can actually be a predictor of where the ancestral village. And so many genealogists who listen to you, they're trying to find out where was the village in Ireland, where was the village in Italy, where was the village in Germany. Well, start looking at, if you think you know where that your ancestor was from, start studying around it. Understand who the other people were, and by inference, you can therefore find your way back to that ancestral home.
What kinds of things should we be studying in that area?
Yeah, so there's two big things. The first is physical geography, especially when you look at when transportation technology was weak, meaning a horse and a cart or a donkey, and road infrastructure didn't exist. Well, then the world is going to be very, very small. And in the lecture I gave today, I was talking about the hills of Sharon, Connecticut, and I also talked about the hills in southern Italy, in the Cilento area. And when you live in a mountainous region, there's not a lot of places you can go.
Right.
And by looking at the physical geography, you can predict in the towns in that region where the likely intermarriages took place. So physical geography, using Google Earth, is a great way to say, these people probably didn't get around a lot. Let me focus in on these 3 towns.
Because they had a huge mountain in front of them.
There's a huge,
literally.
Or a lake or a river. So that's one. And then the other one was capturing the human geography. So when I talk about the sound of the village bell, that was an Italian tradition of a tight-knit clan or community. But there are other different types of human interaction that exist in other areas. When you begin to understand the human geography, then that also is an important predictor. So understanding the economics of a town, understanding the history of the town, understanding the religious practices within the town, tying all that together can actually be the clues by which you should therefore focus your research strategies.
Okay, using this idea, what comes to mind is if a town has a particular business or industry, it would be important for me to know what other areas they did commerce with.
That's right.
So if you're going to follow the money, right?
Always follow the money.
Okay. And so if you know, well, they tended to deal to the south of them because there was somebody else just to the north of the northern folks, they didn't go that direction.
Right.
So most likely they met the girl in the town where they were doing business, right?
That's you are totally getting this. It's basically defining the pool of mates.
Okay.
I was just given a journal from Scotland from the mid-1700s.
Ooh.
All right, very, very cool, in Perthshire. And it was all the business transactions that this person had. And what's interesting, in the business transactions, it lists the town and the villages of the business transactions, and you can map on the radius where they were. So you can begin to see what was the range of this person's business, what was the social network. Think about it. You can almost, if you work it, you can create the equivalent of the MySpace or Facebook of the 19th century and map out those social interactions. And with that, social interactions, it's how you meet your spouse. It could be around the church, it could be around commerce, it could be around, and what I've seen a lot, in the mountains, it could be just who's in a geographic proximity that you can actually walk through the 6 feet of snow to get there. So you think about Facebook and apply Facebook to genealogy.
It's the same concept.
It's the same concept.
And you know, the image that just popped in my mind as you were describing this was I have this multi-page probate record for one of my husband's great-great-grandfathers, and he was in business, and they happened to list every single person who owed him any money at all.
That's right.
I could literally take that document and map it and see, okay, so tell us, what kind of tools are we using to do this kind of mapping?